focused on leadership and communication to build your knowledge, authority, visibility, and influence as a leader. 6 dimensions: intelligence, the regulating and recalibrating, integrity, intelligence, trust, unification, intelligence, strategic leverage and results, intelligence.
Wow. Welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. You are the very first people to experience our new intro. I love it. Let me know what you think about it and we'll see. So, what are we talking about today? Today is a tough conversation that builds on the topics that we've been looking at over these last few weeks. And what it does is it comes down and it highlights a common area that leaders either fail in or they pay very little attention to it. Now, what we're doing is we're going in with a bit of a deeper perspective from the things that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. Here's my opening statement for you. Every time you let something slide because you're busy or because it's easier, you actually teach people what the real standard is. Now, this probably isn't the one that you discussed, the one that you agreed on, the one that was people said they understood. Maybe they even wrote it down. It's the real standard, because the real standard is the one that they learn from watching what happens. They learn it from watching what happens, because whether it's in your private life, whether it's in your professional life, the people around you pay close attention to what leaders tolerate or to what you tolerate. So they notice. They notice what gets corrected. They notice what gets excused. They notice what gets ignored. Just as importantly, they notice who gets challenged and who gets a free pass. So over time, each time, every single one of these moments is training your culture. It's training people what you will tolerate. Now, it's easy, really easy as a leader to forget that the opposite of that is also true. Because if what you tolerate can lower a standard, then what you consistently name, what you reinforce, and what you reset will actually lift that standard. So, it's not about being harsher, it's about being conscious of what your leadership is training others to do every single day. And it's well worth remembering that authority, your authority is shown by what you are allowing, not by what you are demanding. Yeah? We're going to talk into that today. I'm Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership and communication coach, and I would love it if you would join me for this important conversation, starting with how standards quietly drop as a result of your leadership behaviours or the leadership behaviours of others. What you see, if it's not addressed, then it keeps on happening. So that brings us to point number 1, which is every time you tolerate something, you send a leader message. You ignore the behavior, you're sending a message. And people learn what matters by the reactions and the responses of the leader. No consequences means that the behavior is more likely to be repeated. If you step back because it's easier to keep the peace than it is to say anything, you're actively lowering the standard. What we think as leaders, and figure out if you've been in this space. I certainly know there have been times in my life when I have, figure, I'm just going to avoid this. And we think that, oh, yeah, if we avoid it, that's okay. No one will notice. Avoiding is not actually, excuse me, it's not neutral. The impact of you avoiding is that it signals your permission. What you will tolerate speaks so much louder than the words that you might share with your team. Yeah, it speaks so much louder. So, the second point is this: standards drop one unchallenged moment at a time. Standards don't suddenly jump off the end of the diving board. They don't do a huge drop. They erode slowly. And they erode slowly because you say things like, oh, just this once, I'll let that go. Oh, hey guys, we'll fix that up later. Oh, I know. I know you didn't like their comments, but that's just how they are. These exceptions that you start making quickly become the culture. Drip, 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 with repeated permissions. And you, my friend, you are the person giving that permission. The third point for us to look at today is this: when we avoid calling out behavior, it actually damages the trust that we might have between other people in the team. What we do is, when we're avoiding, often it's because we don't want there to be any tension, and we tell ourselves, "Oh, this would be reasonable. This would be fair. That would be kind of me. Oh, I need to be more patient with that person." Can you hear in my voice that what we're doing is we're making excuses for them? Other people are watching. Other people are watching, especially those people who are doing the right thing. They're watching you. They're waiting to see what your reaction is going to be. And when you tolerate that poor behavior, your best people are carrying the cost of that. They're the people who are building a level of frustration. You need to use your relational intelligence. It's one of the dimensions of leadership intelligence. You need to be using your relational intelligence to have the conversation, to call out the behavior, and to actually begin building trust through honesty. Because when you avoid that discomfort or that tension with that person over there, this person over here, and this one, and this one, and this one, they're becoming more and more frustrated. And that's not useful for your team culture or for your leadership. The fourth point I'd like to talk to today is reinforcing desired behaviours lift standards. Now, if you're a parent or you've been anywhere near kids, you may well have heard, notice the positive behaviours, notice the things that they're doing well and reinforce those. This is kind of a grown up version of that, because when you're reinforcing those desired behaviours, you're not focusing only on calling out what's wrong. You're actually training the standards and the culture by naming what's right. You want to reinforce that behavior that you're after, reinforce that sense of ownership, the raising risks early, the follow through, the respectful challenges when people might push back a little bit, the innovation, the new ideas. The really important thing here is that you're specific about the praise that you give. It's not about being vague. It's actually about being quite specific so that they know exactly what it is that they're doing that you're identifying whether it's positive or whether it's negative. People, like human nature, behavioral psychology tells us that people repeat what is noticed, what is valued, and what is reinforced. Yeah, because standards will lift much faster when, as a leader, you reinforce the behavior that you want more of. Behavior or standards of behavior will lift much faster when, as a parent, you reinforce the behavior that you want more of. Yeah. Number 5, resetting a standard doesn't require a whole lot of drama. It's an excuse that a lot of people use. They think, oh no, if I'm going to reset this, there'll be a lot of emotional fallout here. The important thing is to avoid the big confrontation. And so, what that means is that there's no need for huge emotions, for it to take ages and ages, or for it to be punitive in nature. A reset can be calm, it can be clear, and it can be brief. Things like, this is not how we do it here. Things like, let's reset the expectation. Things like, this needs to be addressed before it becomes a pattern. These are demonstrations of clear, calm, brief conversation starters for a reset. And this is when, as a leader, your calmness, your briefness, your clarity will skyrocket your authority, because not only are you clear, calm, and brief, you're also intervening early. And the sooner that you intervene, the more likely it is that you're able to manage your own frustration, but also the frustration of the others who are watching. An early reset, doing this early, is always much easier to do. Whenever you're going to do it, initially, it will feel uncomfortable. But as I say to my clients all the time, it's a whole heap better to have a tricky conversation early than it is to get yourself all prepared for a really tough conversation, by which time you've allowed the behavior to continue over and over and over and over. And so I've spent time with clients who've gone, well, I don't know why they were telling me I needed to change my behavior. I'd been doing that the entire time they'd been there. It's harder to deal with that because sometimes we don't feel like acknowledging that we were part of the problem as well. Okay. So that early reset is always going to be easier for you to do. Let's now have a look at a practical leadership intelligence tool that you can use to help you to be doing this better. I've got what's called the Notice Name Reset tool. These tools have really interesting names, but I have to come up with names that are a bit weird so that I can differentiate between them. By the way, if what you want is a copy of the detail of this tool, make a note on the platform that you're watching this on, and we'll make sure that you get it out to us. Just put a comment and we will get it out to you. I don't know why I'm saying you're going to get it out to us. Okay, this tool is what we use when we see behavior that's below the standards, or when we want to lift the behavior, and so we want the positive behavior repeated. So the first thing is notice. Now, what we want to do here is to, in terms of noticing, is to ask ourselves, this is a big question, yeah? I want you to ask yourself, if I say nothing here, what am I teaching? if I say nothing here, what am I teaching? Now, hopefully, you've been listening to the things that we've talked about earlier in this conversation, and you've identified that that silence has impact. The silence sends a really clear message. So, if I say nothing here, what am I teaching? The second aspect is name, and this is about you naming that behavior clearly and calmly. The update was late. That comment shut the conversation down. The risk that you identified was raised too late. The level of ownership, or that level of ownership, is exactly what we need more of. Calm, clear. The third aspect is reset. Now, this is where what we're going to do is to reinforce. So, if the standard is below what you want, then you would say the standard moving forward is, and clearly, briefly articulate the standard that you want moving forward. If the standard is absolutely awesome, then what you would say is something like this. That's the behavior we need to keep repeating because, and give them clearly and calmly the reason why. Yeah, I'll give you an example. And what I've chosen to do here is one um, that reinforces positive behavior, the kind of behavior that you want. So I want to highlight what just happened here. You raised the risk early, you named the impact, and you brought a possible solution to the table. Thank you. That's exactly the standard we need around ownership. Positive reinforcement. So much better than just saying thank you. You're reinforcing the kind of standard that you want moving forward. Now, the awesome thing about this tool, as I said, is that it works both ways. It can work to lift the standard. It can just as easily work to call it out and lift it. It can also work to retain it. Next part of our call today is the reflection question. Another big one today, and as I've said many times, these questions are designed to have you think about what might actually be going on for you in relation to the topic that we talked about. So we'll put the question up. It's a matter of reflecting on it, make some notes, go away, come back to it. Keep on having a look at it because you cannot change what you're not noticing. And that's why I have the reflection question in there. So today's question is this: what behavior am I tolerating that may be training the very culture that I say I don't want? So, what behavior am I tolerating that may be training the very culture I say I don't want? So, if you want accountability and you're not setting a standard around that, that's you're tolerating that. If what you're saying is you want respectful communication between your team members and you're tolerating inappropriate remarks or put downs, you're moving away from the very culture that you say that you want. When you notice it, you can do something to change it. Okay, let's look at what our key takeaways are for today. First one is this: what leaders tolerate is actually what the real standard is. Yeah, it's what the real standard is. And if what you do is you avoid or you ignore one person, then that actually demotivates others. So that has a flow on effect. And what we also clearly identified is that standards lift when you, in your leadership role, consistently notice, name, reset, and reinforce those behaviors. Now, if there is a behavior that your team keeps repeating, it's time for you to ask a harder question. It's not just why do they keep doing that, but what has made this behavior safe enough to continue? What has made this behavior safe enough to continue? Because it repeats when it's tolerated, it repeats when you make excuses about it, it repeats when you and the rest of the team work around it. Oh, and it also repeats when the discomfort of naming it feels bigger than the cost of allowing it. As a leader, this is where your authority matters. Not forcing them, not controlling them, not emotional drama or overkill. Your authority, your willingness to call it out, to say, this is not the standard, and to hold that line consistently. So, if today's conversation has helped you to recognize, oh, I'm tolerating some behaviors here that I shouldn't be. I'm avoiding, I'm absorbing, or whatever. I'm actually setting the wrong standards and the wrong tone here. Use the QR code or the link that will be on the platform that you're watching this on, and book a conversation with me, because sometimes the best thing for your culture is a leader who's willing to stop training that poor behavior. Who, what you've tolerated today as a leader becomes what you're forced to manage tomorrow. So what you're letting people get away with you're just pushing the issue into the future. I'd love to have that chat with you. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've got questions or comments, pop them on the platform that you're watching or listening to this on. If it's the podcast, we would love it if what you would do is um, share, comment, and subscribe, because that just helps us know that we're actually getting out there and reaching out to a number of people. Now, next week, what we're going to look at is how you might deal with this and all of those, ooh, I feel as though I'm being mean. Maybe people won't like me, feelings and emotions that a leader can have when they're trying to set and maintain new standards. See you then. Bye now.